Great, thanks very much, and thanks everyone for joining today. I'm calling in from Miami, Florida at this moment. It's a nice change of pace from Toronto, where it's very cold. Anyways, here's the story about Polymetallic. We're a company that we believe is going to end up creating history in Canada, probably the biggest discovery here in the last 30 years. It's a very unusual.
Just a second, Duncan. We do see the tabs and so on. If you could go in full screen, we would not see maybe some of your information from
Right.
the top part, because we're seeing your tabs and some of your favorites right now.
Okay, I think I just changed that.
So from automatic zoom, if you could go maybe to full screen, that would
Okay.
help, because I still see the full screen with your information.
There we are. And is that coming?
Could you try to press F11?
F11. And there. And
No.
how to get rid of all this stuff up here?
Yeah, it's because you're seeing it in the browser and not as an independent PDF.
Okay. Are you okay with that just as this for the moment?
We are good with it. It's just that as I said, we do see some of your
just try to click F11 again. I think you
Yep.
haven't selected the presentation. Let's try it again. Oh, okay. Let's go anyway.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So we're a very unusual project here. It's a polymetallic discovery. So it's a very high grade nickel, copper, and PGEs, and we're having an awful lot of fun with it. Here's your typical Pinocchio page. We'll tell you what we believe are the facts, but please do your own due diligence and research. And so we're set up here with a market cap that's about $350 million today. We just concluded a significant financing that has brought in $40 million of flow-through funds and $10 million of hard. In the left-hand side, you'll see there's a bunch of warrants out. We'll get those mostly converted into common stock in the next couple of weeks. That'll bring in roughly another $8 million. Unlike most mining companies, more than half the stock is held by a small group of investors. The largest is our CEO, Terry Lynch, and his family. Critical Elements, which still retains 20% ownership of the NIS project. They've got about 10 million shares at this point. They've been sellers when we've asked. The Stern family, CVMR, who is the largest private nickel refining entity in the world, and some names that many people would know, Robert Friedland and Rob McEwen, and a couple of fantastic hedge funds out of Montreal, BT Global and Palos. And there's roughly 14 billionaires on board this company. So we've got a fantastic shareholder base at this point. So we're just going to roughly go through these different areas. So we think we've got a polymetallic supergiant potential here with this project. We're in Quebec. We're just southeast of James Bay, just outside the town of Nemaska, and we have a great situation there. We're right beside a major highway with a Quebec Hydro substation across the road, and power lines that go right through our property. Our relations with the James Bay Cree are fantastic. They're probably the best guys to deal with in the country. They're very sophisticated. The Quebec government's very much behind us as well. And there's all sorts of attributes for doing business in Quebec. We've taken advantage of charitable tax flow share deals where we're typically able to finance at twice our end price, and you get half the dilution. So very positive. And as I mentioned, later on this week, we'll close a $50 million funding. So we're all set for all our work that we're going to do through this year and into next. And, as well as Robert Friedland and Rob McEwen, we've got, Gina Reinhardt on board. She's Australia's richest woman, big fan of us in our project. We've got Terra Capital out of Australia as well. And that's maybe coming a little bit from a reputation of our newest director, Dr. Steve Beresford. In Australia, he's certainly revered as a bit of a geo god. Fantastic resume. He's the guy behind First Quantum, MMG, and IGO as the chief geologist. And he came on last year. He came up to our site, got incredibly excited, and went from being a consultant to a board member. And he is probably the foremost mind in polymetallic world. So it's really key that we put together a pretty significant brain trust to help us go at this quite unusual discovery. So at this point, we've got 3 rigs on the go on our property, and we'll bring in additional rigs. There's about 40 weeks of the year that we can work on this property. We stop for spring break, which is basically the month of May, and we stop in the middle of September to the middle of October when it's moose hunting season, and the guys take a little bit of time off at Christmas. So we'll have just a ton of news coming out over the next couple of weeks and months and all through the year. So let's take a look at this project itself. So NISC is the name. We originally started to develop NISC Main, and we've had this property now for about 3.5 to 4 years. We've taken it from about 1 million tons of 1.2% nickel to 43-101 at the end of 23, where we are just north of 7 million tons of high-grade nickel. A year and a half ago, we looked up towards the northeast, and we found an interesting anomaly, ultramafic showings on surface, and we were down to our last 200 meters of drilling for the season. We put a hole down, and we had the 3rd best platinum palladium hit in the world, and that led us to this Lion discovery. We've named it that, and it has been nothing but exceptional results. We probably found north of 8 million tons of 7% plus copper EQ. We think that this is going to grow dramatically over the next couple of weeks and months, and we've got about 11 different elements there. We get comparisons to Norilsk, which is in Russia, probably the most valuable mine in the world. They have about 14 elements. We've got 11, and this thing is just looking like it's going to be very significant. Dr. Beresford, when he came to our property and started looking at this thing, he made a couple observations and basic theories. His primary belief is that this whole body is between NISC Main and west of, and Lion and east of, is all one major nickel body, and you've had these hydrothermic events that have created these super rich and concentrated chutes. That's what Lion looks like, and he expects us to have more discoveries like that, and we think we've actually made one just recently. We did a 700-meter step out to the east of the Lion zone, and we've found a sort of a different version of Lion, and we're nicknaming that internally Tiger at this point. And we'll be doing an awful lot of exploration work around that, around Lion, and working in between NISC Main and Lion to prove up Dr. Beresford's theory. We put this chart together a couple days ago. It basically shows some of the exceptional grades that we have here on this line zone. As I said, it's very copper rich, highly concentrated. Platinum and palladium numbers are exceptional. We're actually after Stillwater, the biggest platinum palladium play on the go right now, which is kind of neat. We don't talk about that too much, but it's part of the mix here. Great grades of gold and silver in there as well, and they're significantly large and wide. And this is what's turning on people in the marketplace. So as I mentioned, this line zone keeps getting bigger. We're having success going both east and west, and going to deeper levels. This basically comes up to surface just like NIST Main, and we're down at this point 500 to 600 meters. We're about 600 meters wide, where we've done concentrated drilling, but it's looking like this is going to expand up to at least 1900 meters wide. So again, incredibly rich grades that we're getting out of here. So one thing that we do is anytime we do what we believe are successful holes, we put out pictures of the core because we believe it's material. And this rock type is fairly evident if you're a geo. And so we point out that here's some successful core that we've found with our drilling, and generally the assays prove that up in fairly short order. So we're going to continue to drill deeper on the line zone. We're just waiting on assays for 2 of the deepest holes that we've done here, and as well as hole 94, which is the 700-meter step out to the east or over to the right. And we're doing step outs in the 150 meter amplitude going to the west. And one key thing that we do is when we finish drilling the hole, we go and do downhole EM, and it's been a very productive tool for us. We've used all sorts of different ways of gathering data, but the downhole EM seems to be very productive for us. The positive of having hydro power on our property, that's a positive, but it's also a negative when it comes to doing airborne EM. So we've been doing all sorts of other goodies like geochemistry, ground EM, and the downhole EM, and that's giving us an awful lot of knowledge. So as I mentioned before, we have this new discovery that we're calling Tiger, and examples of some of the core here. It came about from doing some holes where we did downhole EM to give us some better imaging. It's fairly clean rock that we're dealing with, so we're able to get visuals about 150 meters from the holes, which is giving us a very good picture of what's going on here. So these assays will be out, I think, within the next week, and they should be incredibly significant for our company. One thing people look at and they say, well, geez, you guys were like 20 cents and now you're nearly $2. I've missed it. And we suggest that we're just in the beginning of creating value for this project, and that there's tremendous upside here as we get going. And very traditionally we say we're trading at a bit of a discount. We think we're being valued about 30 or 35 cents on the dollar, given what we've already discovered. So we show a number of different examples here of fantastic world-class discoveries, diamond fields, Arequipa, Aurelian, and Great Bear. So when these things come together, they present fantastic capital gains opportunity. This is a matrix. We show roughly where we sit in comparison to polymetallic discoveries that are out there in the world. And we think that we're going to be able to move up on this matrix substantially over the next couple months and this year. But these are clearly the most valuable properties in the world, and that's why people should be interested in these polymetallics. This is all on our website. So you can take a look at this in more detail. But basically, here's some examples of companies that are out there and what their market caps are. Maybe the best one to look at closely here for us is Foran, and we're getting pretty close to their size in terms of assets, and they're trading at just under $2 billion. So we're about 350 million at this point, and we think we'll be up to those levels in fairly short order. Let's see what happens. Again, so for the second time, both Friedland and McEwen were significant players in our financings. Robert Friedland took half the issue that we did last June when we did a $1.25 charitable flow through with the buyback at 66, and again a significant player in the one we just did at $1.85 and a 145 buyback. Sorry, 285. So as I mentioned, we're in Quebec. There's a couple other aspects to being here that I didn't mention earlier. The Quebec government and the federal government will give you tax credits for the development of mining facilities. They'll give you tax credits for 55% of your costs. So that's a significant help in going and building a facility here. If we did, and we're going to be releasing a feasibility study shortly done by CVMR, perhaps we're looking at around 300 million to get this thing into production. So key to have some really smart guys. So obviously Steve Beresford, top guy in the world in the polymetallics. Joe Campbell is our VP of exploration, and he actually heads up a company that we sub out work to called GeoVector out of Ottawa. And Adam Finley with GeoVector is our guy on the site, managing everything there. A small aspect that's important is when Beresford came on board, he took a look at our database and recognized that it had been done in a methodology of a company that he had worked at before called Western Mining. And it turns out that Joe Campbell had been there at the same time. And so they're operating from the same database structure. Makes a big difference for people coming in. So we're doing additional work here too, aside from the feasibility study. We have brought us a geochem group in, geophysicists, and they're busy also doing metallurgical work for us. And we're just trying to get a good handle on what we have there in terms of the rock. So this will take a couple months to get done, but it should be a significant announcement when we do put it out. So here's the joy of polymetallics. Our particular one is determined to be orthomagnetic. It's a balance. We sit roughly just above Sakatti here in this pyramid or triangle, and basically it's just incredibly valuable rock because it's roughly a third of nickel, PGEs including gold and silver, and copper. So this is a ideal situation. As I mentioned before, we did an awful lot of research last summer especially, and ongoing still. So doing gravity surveys, EM surveys, the downhole work, geochem work, etc., so that we build up a significant database so we can drill effectively and explore this project as fast as we can. I mentioned CVMR. They're doing a feasibility study. Most people have never heard of this company, but they're actually the largest private nickel refining entity out there. They have a really interesting process. It has been around for a while. They basically atomize and reatomize elements, and of particular interest for us when they look at nickel is they create nickel powders. Nickel's a bit of a four-letter word these days, but what they're able to do is take a product that if you bought it in the market at 15,000 a ton, their cost structure to transform it is about 4, and they're able to sell these nickel powders for $60,000 to $80,000 a ton. They're obviously used in the battery complex. The military uses it extensively, and one of the fastest growing areas right now is 3D printing. So they're a big supplier in that area. Their top customers are U.S. government and Fortune 100 entities out there. So it's a nice relationship with these guys. Some people get sort of passionate about this, but we think we're actually going to be the first carbon negative polymetallic mine on the go. There's all sorts of natural reasons for that with our intrinsics. We don't necessarily know if we're going to get higher prices for our nickel, but we think we're going to have the better customers coming to take a look at us. So we've had extensive meetings with the Korean battery makers, and also the U.S. Department of Energy and Department of Defense. One other technology that we've used is a really neat stuff called ambient noise tomography. It's passive seismic basically, and we've teamed up with a company called Fleet Space Technologies. They're out of Australia. They're the fastest growing company there. Rio Tinto uses them extensively, and they've been able to do a whole bunch of interesting mapping for us, not only at NISC, but also with our properties that we have down in Chile that we recently spun out. So pretty neat stuff. As an example, if you take a look at NISC Main, which is in the red here, they've identified 4 bodies, east and west, 2 of them that they think from their technology work are roughly similar size to NISC Main, and 2 that are maybe 40 or 50%. So, excuse me, very helpful technology. As I mentioned a second ago, we spun off our assets in Chile and British Columbia into a private company. We're naming that Chilean Metals. It'll stay private for at least 4 or 5 months, and then we'll get these developed a bit more as a separate entity, and go from there. Very quick. Here's our team, a bunch of entrepreneurs for the most part, doing things with the exception, obviously, of Dr. Beresford and Joe Campbell and Azima Perez, who's down in Chile for us. But a nice brain trust here. This is basically our story. If people have questions, I guess off we go.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for the presentation and the update, Duncan. Very, very impressive. Obviously, the big financing and the upsizing of it really speaks for itself. We do have a few questions in, so there's still 4 minutes to go. So if anyone has more questions, please feel free to ask. I will start with Eric. So Eric is asking, is it a PEA or a PFS that is being conducted at NISC? And what is the expected date of disclosure?
We're doing a feasibility study on NISC. We'll eventually do a banking feasibility on this, but we're in no rush to go do that. So feasibility from CVMR. The next sort of important data like that is the metallurgical study, and that'll be hopefully around by the end of Q2. So those are the things that matter on that front. It's still early days for us, even though we've made a pretty significant discovery so far. Our focus will be drilling this as aggressively and intelligently as we can.
Perfect. What is the average width at Leon?
Average width is closing in on 20 meters. Just
Oh,
huge.
yeah. Perfect.
Sorry, I can't help myself. These are just ridiculous numbers that we see, right? Like
Here.
you know, as an example, like the guys at Stillwater came to see us in Vancouver recently, and we had a bunch of core out and assay numbers, and they're looking at our platinum palladium stuff. And the guy goes, "Well, I guess these are all parts per million." And we said, "No, they're grams. Like it's quantum different size. Just incredibly rich." Anyways.
Absolutely. Discussing the metallurgical testing, which company will be performing the tests?
Oh, we've I don't know the name of it actually, to be honest. We brought in a group from Finland to do this, so I can get back to you, or
No,
that'll be on our website.
perfect. When can we expect the next set of drill results? Ask Gerard.
Couple minutes? No. I would say we should see something either later this week or next week, almost for sure. We have an issue with our assays typically where we're going over on the measurement standards that are being used. So we have to get many of our holes re-assayed a second time and sometimes even a third. So that slows things down a little bit, but we should have substantial number of assays out both in the next week and the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Perfect. And then would you plan to bypass the Toronto exchange in case of a uplisting and go directly to a US exchange?
That's definitely under consideration. You know, we think we'll get more appreciation being in the US market. We're on a lousy exchange right now in the States, so either NASDAQ or New York, and we're well advanced in the discussions and process for that.
Perfect. Well, that's all the time we had. So this will conclude our presentation, your presentation. So and your time slot, Duncan. So thank you very much for the presentation. Very great to meet you. I hope everyone got a really good update of what's happening. Two major projects. Numbers are off the charts. Nothing else I can say than best of luck to you guys, and we'll be following the project. It is very, very interesting for sure.
Right on. Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate your time. Have a
Thank
great
you
day.
very much, Duncan.